The squirrel was magic!
Good? I can't see myself. Beware your human heart. This is a Diabolical Index for, I don't even know what day it is. This is the first time I've never known. May 20th? This is Diabolical Index for May 20th, 2019, where the pages of the Uncanny reside. This is Corey Dawson. I would say back as always, but this is the first time I've been at Moreland Manor. They set up a real nice little nook for me. I think that I'm too wide to even see what's behind me, but they got a nice little tableau happening back here for me. But yeah, it's nice to be back. I've got a lot to talk about tonight, and it might seem like it's totally random and none of it is interconnected, but just like everything else, you look close enough and you can see the Virgin Mary in a piece of wood or whatever, Jesus in toast, or, you spill out a bunch of marbles and all of a sudden you see the secrets of the universe. Like 42. I'm 42, so I am now the great answer to the question of life, the universe, and everything. And I probably weigh about as much as the universe. But anyway, there is a few things I wanted to get off straight off the bat. And that is, Juice in the Morning is the June featured podcast at Magic Scroll Network. So definitely check them out. Best looking guy in the whole crew, modeling career, all that type of stuff. The rest of them just a bunch of bums. Although I've been made aware that I think that I'm pretty quickly becoming the only live guy on here. So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, he does the pre-recordings, right? Does he ever? I guess they go live occasionally, don't they?
Who?
Juice in the Morning?
Yeah, on their page, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. I'm trying a brand new ginseng-infused soft drink that, I don't know, it might get me to the other side. I also want to mention with the Oh Yeah Dig It podcast, there was a little bit of a hiatus there, but he came back in full stride with a reading of the Neverending Story. I think he just did part 2 of the Neverending Story, and I can't wait. Yeah, I hope that he just keeps going on with that. I mean, of course, it's a Neverending Story, but it is finite, the book itself. And the book by Enda is definitely, it's got a lot more than there was in the 80s film, even though it's definitely one of my big favorites. But there's a lot more to be seen in that story. I think you'd be surprised at how Falcor turns out. But, oh my God. Mr. Gully, back again. I should have known. We really needed some class. We need to get some class. Yeah, man, I didn't even look over to see. Of course, he's helped me out. Mr. Gully is always helping me out because he is the Tom Gully Show. Check it out wherever you can find it. I'm sure that it's widespread by now. The clout is just unimaginable. It blows my mind whenever you show up. So thanks a lot for coming out, Mr. Gully. Anyway, also pretty big news. Kind of like the first time, as far as I'm aware, that Ashley Zombie, our resident gamer, the playthrough, the queen of playthrough and horror on the two-dimensional, she came to Cincinnati. I think it was over the weekend, Saturday. I was out of town. I was doing some important stuff, so I wasn't able to get to that. But basically, I had a few things to talk about what I've been getting into lately, and some of it is going to make up a good portion of the show. And a few of the people, not most of the people, but a good contingent of the people that I want to be talking about are actually here now. So what I wanted to talk about was, it's been few and far between with the shows lately, and I'm glad at least I can say that it's not just due to negligence, which has normally been my bane and my problem. Things kind of get out of control, or I'm sick, or what have you. In this case, this last time I was feeling a little bit under the weather or whatever, but I have been doing a lot of projects outside of Diabolical Index that you might find interesting. And actually, Natalie Brown, one of the people in the stream tonight, she is part of some of it with the Scarecrow Tales podcast. I was unaware that there was this gigantic, not necessarily underground. I was the one who was underground for not even knowing that it existed, but there's this gigantic community of horror story and narrative podcasts out there, and they need fans, and they need supporters and actors. So just through circumstance, I've ended up meeting a bunch of actors and being involved in a bunch of narrative podcasts. And so I've got some stuff floating around there. If you if you get a kick out of hearing me make a fool of myself, and I don't know. I walk around all day doing voices and whatnot to myself. I don't talk to myself as myself. I rarely talk to myself, but when I do, it's always in another voice, whatever. I guess it's that, that love, or that drive to, become an animated character on some show. That's like the dream of anyone who even, just messes around doing voices in the mirror or whatever. I would love to do it, and I found a few that have been interested to have me on. And Scarecrow Tales, I've got a couple on there. Played Charlie the Clown in their Easter episode with the segment Black Bunny. And Scarecrow Tales in a few weeks, I've got actually play a married couple. So do a double roll on that one. in a few weeks in Scarecrow Tales, because yesterday's news. And I played a cop. I was like a cameo in the Tales from the Bud feed episode, and there's another episode coming up pretty soon that I actually play a little bit bigger of a role, and it's called Tongue in Cheek. So check out Tales from the Bud, and actually Natalie's part of that too. So check out Tales from the Bud and look around for the Tongue in Cheek episode. It was a blast to do. But beyond all that, I actually met up finally at the last Midwest Action Fest. I met up with Stephen Gillespie from Possessed Radio, and we've actually been working pretty closely. I've done a couple of reviews. I sent one review over for his movie review site and blog, and we have actually started a horror narration podcast together called Cursed Passages. So definitely check that out. We put a preview on YouTube. Did you get that image of Cursed Passages? Okay. We put a preview out on YouTube a couple of weeks ago, I think, and we're real super close. Hopefully, with any luck, we'll be able to drop the first episode. I guess it'd be episode 1 proper. With any luck, should drop tomorrow. I'll put all kinds of links to it up everywhere I can. And the coolest part of all is that the author of Porcelain, my first book that I had on the Diabolical Index, I was able to plead, beg, and wrangle a exclusive, non-published story from him called Cherry Blossoms. And it is a horror that delves into the heartstrings too. There's blood of every kind. There's the familial type of blood, and then the arterial spray type of blood too, in that one. So that'll be our first full-length episode. So go to possessedradio.com, check out the blog, Stephen Gillespie's work on that, and also go to Cursed Passages on YouTube and check out the preview episode. It's only about 7 minutes long, but it's 2 parts of a continuing story that we hope to be able to bring along with the longer pieces over time. So, all right, that being said, I wanted to you going away for a while? Okay, I'll need some of those things. But okay, so basically the major revelation of the last, oh my God, I would say of the last month, but it has to be the revelation of my life. It has to be. To discover... Dude, I'm just looking at these comments. This is awesome that everybody showed up. But I discovered Fairborn, Ohio. And this is something that it blows my mind. I cannot believe that it's been hidden from me for so long, and no one has mentioned it, and it's the very definition of best kept secret. So somehow, and I actually spoke with Angela from Black Books, aka the Mask of the Red Book Club, and we were talking about how on earth I even found out about the Black Books Club, and we couldn't come up with a great reason how. It must have been someone posted something somewhere, and it was a friend of a friend, and there must have been a posting somewhere, and I latched onto it, or someone was talking about a book that I was interested in, and somehow I ended up coming across the Black Books, and that would have been probably just before October of last year. And as you probably know, with all this stuff, there's a bunch of stuff that's come down, and I wasn't able to attend a lot of their book club meetings. But a book that I was insane about getting into finally came up, and I decided I wasn't going to miss this particular meeting. And so I'll talk about what book that was in a minute. But I set it up with everybody, and at the very beginning, I must not have mentioned anything about being on a podcast. because I just, nonchalantly mentioned it, and all of a sudden they thought that I was somebody. So it became a different prospect. But what I never could have known was what I was going to discover when I went to Fairborn, Ohio. So there's this 2-block stretch of road in Fairborn, Ohio, past Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, or to the side of it, whatever you'd say. And she had basically warned me that, not warned, but just kind of like let me know that it was Halloween all the time. And I said, well, okay, yeah, whatever. Whatever you say. Okay. I never could have dreamt what was going to happen when I went to Fairborn. And to some people, they couldn't care less. I don't know who those people are. I don't want to know them. I wouldn't want to meet them. But when you go into this town, or at least into this part of town, this little 2-block stretch, and maybe a little bit over that, you drive in. You got those things? Okay. So I don't want them to forget, because I was so dumbstruck when I got to this place that I was just looking around. I mean, I guess it's probably a good thing in the 21st century to actually try to remember something instead of completely documenting every moment in video or film or anything like that. Saying the word film is just screwed up at this point. But it was just pure joy. So I try to be a little bit early. I'm the type of person who likes to know where the exits are and all that type of stuff, because you just never know. Especially since, like, they were kind of acting like I wasn't going to make it out there alive. And some people might be kind of turned away by that sort of thing. Not me. I was, it even made it even more of an adventure. So I went and I got parked, and this is cracking me up, because like a lot of people who are talking about this is where they're there all the time. This is not going to thrill them. But to me, it was unreal. It was like stepping off the bus into like the Leaky Cauldron, or like going to, Jack Skellington's house and all this kind of stuff. I park the car, I get all my stuff together, and I walk down and I see this zombie guy sitting on a bench. And all I could think of was, this guy has been here since the beginning of time. Like, some of it was like rotted away. You can see like storms have like weathered him. So, it wasn't just something that had been put out there for an exhibit, just recently. So I'm like, they keep this guy out here all the time, and everyone, maintains this place. Like, where I'm from, that thing would have disappeared like the first night. It would have been vandalized, all this kind of stuff. But there's such a great love for it. And like right next to it is this place called Foy's Halloween Shop. I'm sure I'm getting the names. I mean, it's definitely Foy's, but there's so many shops. But there's a shop that has like walls and walls of masks everywhere. And it's got the Zoltar machine, like Zoltar Speaks, where you can go in and, I mean, I wouldn't go in there to say big. I'd have to say small. If I got any bigger, like, I have to wear the Hulk's pants. But so I go in there. I see all this stuff. You walk in, there are eyeballs in jars and fake roaches and worms and Fu Manchu fingers and all that kind of stuff. And I just walked out in a daze. Like, this is why I don't have all the photographs and stuff I ought to have. I look across the street, and there are skulls on the side of buildings, and there's like a Museum of the Weird, and all this stuff, and Norma Bates is sitting in this window, and it just completely blew my mind. Like, I'm walking down the street, and there's this mummified person just sitting behind the window, and it's totally crazy. Totally crazy. I keep walking down the street. This this is going to be like a total travelogue, but I'm just walking down the street, and I see, there's a coffee shop, and there's a bar where we ended up having a drink there. And there's this adult costume shop, and there's the Bookery. I mean, of all things, the bookery, and oh yeah, you think it doesn't stop there. There's not just one. Everybody watching this and be like, oh my God, he's going off. It's totally serious. You go and you see the bookery collectibles on the left side. And normally when something says collectibles, I kind of walk the other direction. I don't like the idea of collecting something if you're not going to love it and read it and hang out with it and play with it and whatever. Well, so I go in there. I'm almost got a cold chill just thinking about it. Every book in that place was unbelievable. They had first editions from Manly Wade Wellman, like the Silver John series. I don't know if the Archers are on tonight, but the Archer family, Chris, dude, Manly Wade Wellman, they had the whole Silver John series there. I mean, Joe R. Lansdale was on the front shelf, like right in my face. They had they had everything. They had everything I could possibly want. They had the complete Solar Ponds collection, the whole Solar Ponds omnibus from Arkham House Publishing. And I'm sure you guys know Arkham House, like the original Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, August Derleth stuff from the old Lovecraft Circle and all that kind of stuff. They had everything. Walk out the door, look across the street. There were 2 more bookeries on the other side. And then I look a little bit further down the street I was on, and what used to be a video store, which I was kind of pumped about that, and that's gone, but in its place is Time Warp Toys. So you go in there, and there's all these old school toys in there. They had like stacks of Garbage Pail Kids cards, Rocketeer, just like insane. It was insane. Lon Chaney doll on the wall. Blew my friggin' mind. So, long story short, basically, too late. But, so I ended up going over across the street. Well, I mean, I went to the coffee shop, met up with Angela from Black Books, and she's like, hey, come and see the Secret Chamber. This place is called the Secret Chamber House of Oddities and Art. There are no adjectives to define this place. It was unbelievable. It's this heady mix of like burlesque and the odd with like animal oddities. There's like a 2-headed lamb there. And then there's like skeleton sculptures. But then next to it is kind of like this really awesome, like ornate. It's crazy. Like this ornate oriental chair from God knows when, 1800s, whatever. Look around, all these cool pins and Beetlejuice stuff and like stuffed crows and like I can't even, I don't know. I'm forgetting more than I remember, but the one thing I did get a photograph of was I'm just like walking in and I just had this feeling of something staring at me, and I was kind of like look up and there's this sentinel from the X-Men like staring down at me. It was the coolest thing I had ever seen. I couldn't believe my eyes. So then, just knowing for a fact that I was about to be invited and let into this sanctum sanctorum in this oddities house. And like that, I knew that we weren't going to have it in like, the store proper where everybody was going to be. We would have it in this little out of the way area where only like, the esteemed Black Books and the Mask of the Red Book Club, they gain entrance. And somehow I finagled my way into this. And you walk through these brick arches and they're like these, these really just like velvet curtains like hanging in, and all these wingback chairs everywhere, and it looks like something that came out of a monastery, but there's like pinups on the wall. It was unbelievable. So, all that being said, oh my God, yeah, I can't remember even when I put it. Yeah, there's one. Yeah, put those up. Just yeah, put that in there. There's one I took with there's a picture I took with oh yeah, there's Ben. Okay, so Ben's commenting. Ben and his wife And he looked so dapper. I felt completely underdressed because I was just wearing my Read Books or Else t-shirt. And they came in dressed to the nines. And the occasion for all of this was the Peter Straub book, Ghost Story. And when they said that they were going to read Ghost Story, it blew my mind. But yeah, there's the one with the Meddling mutant head. We had to take a picture of it because it was the only head that I could think of that was bigger than my own. So, and it's only just barely. I probably would have trouble even fitting that on my head. But, yeah, so, oh my gosh. Yeah, so therein lies that picture. There's only one person I think missing from that picture is Angela, the lady who actually brought me into the thing. I think she was actually taking the photo. I can't remember now, but sorely missed. I think there's another one that's almost identical, but she's in that photo. And I look like a total tourist. I was probably in shock from everything, but so yeah. There was a reason why we were all together that day, and it was Ghost Story by Peter Straub. And with that book, it ended up being just a fountain of people's theories and what they garnered from it, and so things they missed, and it was a fantastic conversation. It was great to to glimpse such a great group of people getting together to talk about a common love, and yet have completely different points of view, kind of not necessarily analyze it in a robotic or clinical way, but definitely take what they garnered from it and kind of like try to make some kind of a whole out of it. And it was very special. So I had a great time. But basically with the book, I found it to be a lot about inheritance, and like kind of the subtitle of tonight's show. And I'm probably gone really long already. I don't even know what time it is, but oh, okay, cool, that ought to work. Basically, unfinished business was what I was thinking about with the two books that I was going to touch on, and I was going to go into a little bit of Ghost Story. The Black Books folks, we went through it at length, but there were a couple things that I brought up at the time, and there's just so many ideas flying around that it's difficult to get to them all. But basically, the crux of Ghost Story is basically regret, but only regret when you've been caught out. There are these four elderly gentlemen who are by nature not evil men, but they have done evil things in their history, and they haven't paid the piper when it comes to any of the things that they've done that haven't helped the town, and something has come for them, and it's something that they know all too well, but they don't quite recognize it when it comes. So there are four men, Ricky Hawthorne and Sears James, and their names aren't accidental. Peter Straub, when he was writing the book, I haven't seen a whole lot. It's funny. I haven't seen a whole lot of what he had to say about his own book, which I would imagine sometimes it can be kind of rare when you do. But it's mostly people mentioning the different types of callbacks and homages and different things that they've picked up on as they've read the book, which I found to be kind of when I say cold, I don't necessarily mean austere, There's a definite thread of cold that goes throughout the entire book. Cold, and all I could think of was cold and wet and slimy, like regret can be, like the heart can be, when you think about the things that you could have done or the things that you did do. So the Chowder Society, these I didn't mention all four of them. The other ones are Louis Louis Benedict and John Joffrey. They are the remaining members of the Chowder Society, and there's the cold and wet again. If you think about Chowder, then I mean maybe it's a deep pull. I don't know, but you have these denizens of the sea, and then they're ground up for your meal, and then you have these guys in New York. Is it like Meddling or something? I had to take Milburn. I had to take a couple of notes this time because I'm running on fumes tonight. But they are one of 5 minus 1. But the Chowder Society didn't truly form until after the death of Edward Wanderley, their ghostwriter, which there again, you have the, I mean, it's semantics, but still you have, yeah, I mean, Robin's got a point there. They've done the worst thing, especially when you, I don't want to give too much away. It's difficult talking about this book and trying not to give anything away, but basically, in the form of their sins, there's something that has latched onto their sins and has come for them. And there was a big debate during the meeting about whether or not it was okay. Spoiler. I mean, this is it's not that big of a spoiler if you've even seen the film, which I totally recommend. The film is totally, absolutely wonderful. It couldn't have been done better, in my opinion. It stars Fred Astaire and I think Douglas Fairbanks Jr. and Edward Herrmann. There's an insane amount of wonderful acting in the movie, and I think that the directing and the cinematography definitely carried over the way that I took the book, which was a strange, detached view, cold, but you didn't miss anything. For its coldness, like I said, it wasn't. It didn't leave anything be. There was a nostalgia. They had the warmth of friendship. They had the relationships that they shared, kind of like the dichotomies they had, the different ways they fit together, and the way that they conflicted. They had all of that, and you understood all of that, and you became close to these men, and probably against your better judgment, you became to like some of them, despite what they had done. But it really gets explained to you. It doesn't actually, and that's another thing. It doesn't get explained to you. You see it, you feel it. It's not some big expository book, even though it is a doorstop. It's massive. A couple of the people that were there, we kind of laughed as to how big of an undertaking it was, and blaming someone who's not going to be named for choosing it, but I couldn't have thought of anything better to do. And that's one of the major reasons why I made the trek out there, which wasn't that big of a deal to drive an hour and a half to get there, but it was well worth it. And with the book, I think that there are people who consider it to be, by today's standards, a slow, ponderous read, and I think that's ridiculous. Especially when you think about this, I call it an anti-Gothic, due to the modern, or at least modern to that time, modern setting, 1979, I believe. But if you really dig in, we also had a conversation about, at one point in the book, it seemed to me that since Stephen King is a major proponent of Peter Straub, and whether who knows how much I mean, maybe it's the right thing to say, but maybe how much Stephen King's tentacles were kind of wrapped around Peter Straub, or whether or not there was some sort of I'm not going to say they co-wrote it, but how much influence he had at the time, because there are a couple of majorly Stephen King type moves that happen in the book. It's not tearing it down. But to me personally, I found it really, really super telling. But and it has to do with there's an introduction of not necessarily a journal entry, but or maybe it is a journal now that I think about it. But basically, it involves the nephew of Edward Wanderley, the man who died, who made the Chowder Society, who then comes into the fold, and they have these meetings where they tell each other these horrific stories, where they don't tell what they've done. What's the worst thing you've ever done? But they don't answer that question. They tell a ghost story, and so the title has many different folders and different meanings and double edges and all that kind of stuff, and it just it makes for a wonderful read. And it's not perfect, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, it's not the end all beat all book of everything. Did I say tentacles a bunch of times? I don't know, I don't even know what I'm saying at this point, but yeah, I think that with the introduction of there are younger participants that end up getting embroiled in this thing, and it becomes a problem of the entire town and their lives. It's the fight of their lives. So there's a bit of a quickening and a bit of a broadening that happens with the characters when it kind of becomes a larger problem. And myself, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of conjecture about whether or not who they had wronged was the force behind their reckoning. And maybe it's good not to know completely. It's probably better to have a little bit of doubt, have a little bit of imagination, and put to it things that you understand. Like with this book, for me, it was massive. There's no doubt about it. But for whatever reason, I definitely think that books are subjective, especially over time. When you read something as a young person, you might dismiss it, throw it away, not try it again. Which I think is kind of the double-edged sword of reading in school. I think when you're forced to read something that may have been known as a classic, who knows when it was marked that, whose impression it was, but sometimes you force a child to read something and they just end up hating it, and therefore end up hating reading for their entire lives and stuff. It's dangerous. It's difficult. You never know what can happen, because you don't necessarily want someone to miss out on something that you understand, but you have to put it out there. And sometimes it ends up being by force. And due to that, I've always waited on the Dickens. I know they'll be there, and I'll get around to them sooner or later. But every once in a great while, you can turn a child onto something, or a younger person, but they may not quite feel for it the way I felt for this. And with this one in particular, there was loss, and wintertime, and even wintertime when it wasn't wintertime. It seemed like even when it wasn't supposed to be the dead of winter and stuff, this just had such a coldness to it. And the aged men, and for whatever reason, I really felt myself getting engaged, enthralled in all of this. And it didn't have to do necessarily with the wonder of what was happening so much as the relatability. And I felt things in this read. So who knows? I mean, someone might not get the same impression, and that's okay. You need all points of view, and there were many different points of view. That was another great thing about the Black Books meeting, because for as different as everyone was, and they were, believe me, there were all kinds of wonderful personalities there. There were some that totally were on the same track, and other ones that diverted, and there were some that even changed their mind at the end of the discussion. So it was wonderful. The book was wonderful. The meeting was wonderful, and I won't forget the book. I'll never forget the place, and I know I'll never forget the people. So it was a great time. So yeah, definitely go out and you won't find as good a copy as I have, probably. I've got like the coolest copy of all time. It's awesome. I found a picture that kind of resembles it, but mine's in much better shape. The image that you see, that's the edition I have, and it's in much better shape. But yeah, Ghost Story, Black Books, aka Mask of the Red Book Club, The Secret Chambers of Oddities and Art. It was unbelievable. So anyway, talking about unfinished business, the second book that's on the docket was such a joy. It was called Meddling Kids, and when you think about Meddling Kids, it's most definitely the Meddling Kids of, and it would have worked too if not for those meddling kids that everybody remembers that. And it surprises you most when you find out that the book isn't necessarily a carbon copy. It isn't a. I mean, you could say it was a pastiche, but I prefer to think of it as kind of like a paraphrasing of obviously the Scooby-Doo gang. And when I went into it, I thought, oh man, Scooby-Doo gang, all grown up and like taking on this Lovecraftian evil, which, kind of like the semaphore for Lovecraftian now is like the tentacle. Take a drink, everybody. But
I didn't know you were reading.
Oh yeah. Hey man, I've got my eyes on everything. So you go in thinking, oh, this ought to be cute. This ought to be a lot of fun. It's interesting to see how many things they've kind of mixed. They have a bunch of characters in the book that you think, oh, this must be the Velma. Oh wait, this must be the Daphne. And there's an element of Daphne, but it's in the wrong place. And there's, a heaping helping of Velma, but it's not in the meek one. It's in the tough one. And, the golden boy has committed suicide already. By the time we come into the story, Pete, who is the quote-unquote Fred of the group, he's already committed suicide. Their children's story is in 1977, which makes sense to me. But it's the summer. They're the Blyton Summer Detective Club. And it was really cool. It doesn't hit you over the head. But there are references to like the kid detective genre all over this thing. And if you you don't even. I mean, you have to look closely, on some of them, and some of them are right out in the open. I mean, they work out of Blighton Hills, which is right next to the Zoinks River. So, I mean, what are you going to do? And Mel was actually reading it too. She picked it up for me. I got on an interlibrary loan, and she picked it up for me, so I didn't get to it fast enough. She started reading it first. And she mentioned the reporter is named Nancy Hardy. So I thought that was awesome. And there's all kinds of those little things in this. But I think some people would say it's kind of like this flightiness or this attempt to be cute or do the meta narrative, the callbacks to all the things, the Stranger Things and Goonies and everything, where people are going back to the stuff that they love and putting a hard edge on it, so it makes it a little more timely. But in this case, I think that it's one of those important things to realize that for all the cuteness and for all the homage and for all the callbacks to an earlier, better, safer, more triumphant time, you realize that what this book is saying is that what if the mask that they pulled off of the old man and the roller coaster, what if it was the wrong man? What if all the fake pyrotechnics and fireworks and ghosts falling out of the ceiling and trapdoors, what if that had to do with the man and what really lied behind, what really lies behind the walls of the castle or the mansion or the amusement park? What's really there brought him there, and what is actually there. Because this gang is not unscarred by all of this. Like I said before, the kind of mixture of Shaggy and Velma, his name is Nate. He ended up in, ready to take a drink? Arkham, Massachusetts. He ended up in an asylum in Arkham, Massachusetts. And they're in Oregon, the Blighton Hills. A lot of people were kind of thinking Gravity Falls with that. That's totally fine. I watched Gravity Falls. I thought it was awesome. And it has all of that. But, it's also got much more hidden ones. At one point they call Carrie, who's kind of the Daphne-esque of the group, which is pretty cool because it's spelled the same as my twin sister. Carrie the Encyclopedia. And in the same sentence they said, hey, they called you Sarah the Carrie the Encyclopedia in the papers because you were the brains of the group. So you have encyclopedia and brain in the same sentence. So that's Encyclopedia Brown and the Great Brain right there. So as it goes along, you see all these little subtle things that kind of make you go, oh, clues, right? It's a mystery. It's the mystery machine. There are clues all over this to, past, present, previous kid detectives. But as you're doing that, it hits you over the head with suicide. And it hits you over the head with a drug problem that happened to one of them. And Nate the nerd is hallucinating about Pete, and you're not sure if Pete's an actual character or if he's just going on in Nate's head. So they don't come out unscathed. And actually, someone else who doesn't is in this case, Sean, the Weimaraner, which I don't know if you've ever met a Weimaraner. Hopefully you all have, but it's probably the best kind of sort of analog they could have found for a Scooby-Doo if it's not going to be a Great Dane. That's really funny. I'm talking about dogs and the dogs go off. But in this case, when we fast forward to 91, 77 is when, the summer of 77 was their last case. Is it Secret Lake? Sleepy Lake. The Sleepy Lake Monster. when they go after the Sleepy Lake monster and they take this guy down because he was trying to get into the Deboan. As soon as I saw that, I was like, "Is that the bone? Does that refer to the dog, or does that refer to a skeleton? What's going on here?" And it could be either or both or any. Oh, I love it. They're talking about Transylvania 65000. Oh, I love it. So many people have not seen that movie, and it is a major shame. I wish they would hopefully they have re-released it, but everything I've seen has always been the most horrific looking copy ever. But basically, their lives have been stained by what they experienced in their last case. So Andy, who is the Velma type, except she's on the run, ex-military, and she goes to seek out the old man they unmasked in 1977 at the Sleepy Lake debacle, and she knows that they got the wrong man, and he's a broken man, and he's a tired man, and she ambushes him in the men's bathroom of a bar, and before she can kick him senseless, she sees something in his eyes, and she realizes that he was a pawn the whole time. And she can understand why no one can remember the bodies hanging in the mansion, and no one can remember what happened in the dungeon. So this is a story of trauma. And there again, I mean, I've gone through a little bit of stuff lately, and I find myself not being able to remember some things too. So there's cute and there's cunning. So you can find, if you're not careful, you'll find that while you're paying attention to some Goonies reference or the reference to the famous five, the Enid Blyton, the British children's books of those famous five detectives or the three investigators, if you're not careful, that'll lead you in a false sense of security, and you'll realize that you're remembering things or you're feeling things that you wouldn't have expected to even feel from a book that's supposedly about reminding you of the Scooby-Doo gang in a later time. And the major thing about this book that I wanted to mention before I forget, because I'm just rambling on, is the gymnastics that Quintero does with the language. And some people have kind of accused it of being, well, English is not his first language. So they're thinking that maybe in the kind of in the caverns of translation, that he's able to use the English language in a different, deft, almost magical way that we can't, because we haven't had the luxury of being born into another language and experiencing ours from a different direction. But that can't be all of it. He makes some of the best references I've ever seen. In fact, am I on? Which one am I on?
That one.
Okay, this one? Okay. I want to show, he's also an illustrator. I don't know if he did this illustration or not. Okay, but I'll show it anyways. But, got it?
Yep.
Okay. So, this is what we got going here, and it's so fun when you look at the cover. There's the day glow coloring, and it's got the awesome illustration of the silhouettes of the kids and the dog, and it just has everything going for it.
You're up here now.
Okay, but I want to see if I can't find something. Okay, here we go. It says they're in the car. They're driving. I think they're driving to try to get Nate out of the asylum. So it's Andy and Carrie. So I think it's them. Yeah, and they're driving, and it says Tim, who is the great grandson of Sean, the original Weimaraner. Tim is their new Weimaraner, and it says while they're in the car, Tim had been the only beneficiary of a carnival of plastic wrappers, now self-consciously on the dashboard. He was the only beneficiary of that purchase, which explained why he was now bouncing between the back seat and the trunk and going Baskervilles on the upholstery like a sugar-powered dingo. He has got... I was actually talking to Angela from Black Books a couple days ago, I think. And all I could think of was, I wish so badly that I could get away with the stuff. I couldn't believe some of the similes and some of the things, the definitions of of what was going on. I was amazed that an editor would have allowed him to use some of the stuff he used, because I thought it was playful as hell. And then when you take a look at it and when you go through it, you realize there are like multiple meanings. There are all kinds of things to understand, where you think it's just some sort of glib thing. There are all sorts of little tiny realizations in what he's saying, but on the surface, it seems like this really super unusual way of describing something that myself personally, I appreciated and I understood. There wasn't anything that had happened. I mean, going Baskervilles, I mean, there are all types of things that could mean. But I think that you get the point, and then it harkens back to the Sherlock Holmes stories in that one beat. And I think that if it wasn't done so deftly, I would think that was a little bit clunky to throw that in there. But it's just so goddamn playful that when it goes through, it just serves to put you in that mindset again. That, you know, this was something that once was. What you're seeing is something that used to be, and now you're riding along in the car with some damaged people. But, you know, the introduction of the dog, when Carrie sees the dog, or when Andy sees the dog, and realizes that it isn't their old dog, it's the great grandson of the dog. It just kind of brings it back home that they have to go back to the place where kind of like their childhood ended, and therefore like their adventure ended, but something else ended there too, and they don't know exactly what it is, and they've all been haunted by something but can't remember. It's one of those things where they don't even... I think that Nate is the only one that knows he's haunted, because he feels it every day. There are things that intrude into his psyche and his reality and his soul every single day. So he's reminded, but it's much more under the surface. Like, Carrie could have been a physicist, but yet then she ends up working behind a bar in a skimpy outfit instead. And Andy goes to kind of fight this unseen battle forever, but she can't win until they go back to Sleepy Hills, or Sleepy Lake rather, and find out what really happened in the mansion. So it's kind of it kind of brings everything back around, and you think, you know, how long could the Scooby-Doo gang do this? How long have they done it? It's just kind of like this endless summer for them. Whereas with the meddling kids in this book, they've paid a price they can't remember paying. So getting back to where and who they used to be is all important, and they're down by one. So it's got this intensity that's lightened by the mood and kind of like the deft trickery of the language. And I loved it with a passion. So I totally recommend Meddling Kids. Hopefully I haven't given too much away with that. But I mean, if all else, the comment stream is a joy over here. I'm just getting like bits and pieces as I go along. This is insanity. All kinds of deft inside jokes and song references and good gosh. Anyhow, so there you go. Definitely for the love of all that is unholy and holy alike, make your way. What's that now?
She wasn't if you're done talking about the book, so she can listen.
Oh yeah, I'm done talking about the books now.
Because she wanted to spoil it. She's about to read it again.
Well, I attempt not to. I don't think that I gave too much away on that. Maybe a couple of things, but I mean, I don't think that I gave anything away that wouldn't be gone over if you looked at the cover. So I attempt to kind of go into the deeper things that I felt or saw and all that kind of jazz. Tentacles. You asked, right? Tentacles, tentacles, tentacles. I'm not going to be responsible for anyone going to the hospital. But hopefully, no, I didn't just flip you off, Steven. Angie. Is that what that says? Angela. No, I don't do that kind of thing. I do not do that. They're not going to know anything about what we're talking about on the audio. Anyhow, yeah, Meddling Kids, read it immediately. Ghost Story, read it when you have time to immerse yourself. It isn't a flighty read. Meddling Kids is, I'm not going to say it's quick, but it's nimble. That's for sure. You could totally read Meddling Kids in a day if you wanted to, if you had the time. It's just that well put together, in my opinion. And there were some people who said, they went into it thought they were going to love it, but Lovecraftian in this case means Lovecraftian in kind of like the 21st century parlance, where it's not really part of the Lovecraft flavor. I think that person is seeing it the way they want to see it. I think that there's so many naysayers that when something that is truly fun and does definitely send a message comes out there, I think that they're so interested in kind of crushing it underfoot that they don't care. And they, for all I know, they may have looked at the cover and said, this is day glow colored. It's kind of playful. This is probably some young adult thing. I'm not even going to try it. This is definitely got more for anyone. I mean, a young adult definitely could read this, but it's got something for everyone. And in fact, I probably wouldn't go any younger than young adult. There's some intense stuff in there. But yeah. So Meddling Kids is awesome. Ghost Story is totally masterful, in my opinion. There are definitely some things in Ghost Story that you have to be prepared to not take it for granted. I think that's important. I think that if you go in looking for something to kind of be background noise, it's not going to work for you. And if anyone says they read Meddling Kids as something to do while they're sitting in an elevator, killing time. There's nothing I hate worse than killing time. So anyone who says they're going to kill time by doing either one of these books you're a fool. Pay attention and enjoy, and come out the other side with something you didn't have before. It's silly to do it otherwise. Like I did by going to Fairborn, Ohio. What do you think of that segue, motherfucker? That's what I thought. Yeah, my next T-shirt's going to say, "What do you think about that segue, motherfucker?" on there, and they will be sold.
And like a podcast thing.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, maybe that'll be a sticker. Oh yeah, the only thing I don't kill is time. Okay. So anyhow, I guess that's all. I don't know where we are. Yeah. Tentacles! Would that be a tentacle foul? We're experiencing technical or tentacle difficulties. Oh God. Black books forever. Yeah, I am never getting out of touch with these people. To say that it might be a little presumptuous to say they're my tribe just now, but I think they'll figure out that they're my tribe. You just can't. Yeah, this doesn't happen by accident. Huh? Oh God. I can't tell if she's responding to the puns or just me being giddy as a fuck. Anyway. Thanks for stopping by, all of you. I know it's been a while. Hopefully it won't be next time. I'm going to see if I can't have another non-entry episode with the Choose Your Own Adventures. I don't know. I really have to handpick those Choose Your Own Adventures most of the time. It seems like looking at those as children, looking at them as adults, they're not all created equal. There are some, and also especially they've kind of reissued the Choose Your Own Adventures in the modern, well, not the modern day, but just recently, and they suck for whatever reason. I think that they've really dumbed them down. I think that they're patronizing kids, and they don't have. Why on earth would you? Kids can process so much more than we give them credit for. I remember when I was a kid, and everyone says this, but when I was a kid, it seemed like the children's books didn't. They just didn't patronize kids like they do now. They don't give them any sort of oh, mama. You've got to be kidding. Where has this been?
It's been in my house.
Holy. Doesn't even smell. Imagine that. Can they see? I can't see if they can see. Okay. All of a sudden, Andrew just kind of like breaks out this wonderful thing.
The other one.
Goosebumps, Night in Werewolf Woods, Choose Your Own Adventure. This might be some good shit. Reader beware, you choose the scare. Choose from over 20 different scary endings. The big problem that I have noticed with some of these is that there aren't enough choices. Oh yeah, of course Emily jumps on this. She was talking about, I think she just bought like a whole crate full of Fear Street from somebody. But yeah, we'll have to check that out. But the problem is that a lot of times you turn to the page and it says, you think it's going to be a choice, and then all it is turn to page 61.
Is that what that one is?
I was kind of leafing through it, and
I think there was a choice.
There's a lot of those. But there's a lot of choices, too. I don't know. We'll see. And also, I know, Mel. Jeez. Sheesh. Okay, the list boarding party. I'm interested in that. Yeah, the Black Books, a.k.a. Mask of the Red Book Club, they are engaging in a Lizzie Borden party that you're not invited to, and I'm invited to. So, suck on that. I don't know. I mean, it seems like my costumes are kind of limited on that. I guess I would have to be like the dad with the 40 axes sticking out of him or something. I don't know. And I'm sure that Ben will have that all wrapped up, so I don't know what the hell to do. Maybe I'll just be an axe. I don't know. But
puns all day.
Yeah, something. Maybe I could be the axe sharpener. What? Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Mel. I wasn't. We're a unit. Anyways. Oh, Ben, Jesus. You're not drinking out of that decanter that she brought with the Oh man. You didn't drink that out of Emily's decanter. You're all dead. You're all gonna. I would love to be accountable. Anyways, damn it. I'm going crazy on these comments. Anyway, read Meddling Kids, read Ghost Story. Definitely go to Fairborn, Ohio. Seek out the Black Books Club. If you measure up. But I measured up, so who knows. But this has been the Diabolical Index for May. Holy crap. Did I say May? May. Yeah, it's May, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
20th. We're almost out of here.
This has been the Diabolical Index for May 20th, 2019. Beware your human hearts, because this is where the pages of the uncanny reside. Yeah. Definitely, before I forget, go to PossessRadio.com, Curse Passages on YouTube. Check out the preview episode, and hopefully we'll have a new episode. Steven knows. He was here. He might still be here. We should have a new episode dropping either tomorrow or some other time this week. Hopefully I'll have some links to put up and post to celebrate that. Nate Southard, read Porcelain. It is completely wonderful. Check out Juice in the Morning. It is the June podcast of note. And also keep up with the Oh Yeah Dig It podcast for the reading of the Neverending Story. So there you go. All kinds of plugs out of the way. Listen to Tales from the Bud. I will be starring in Tongue in Cheek, a really horrific parasitical story. And Scarecrow Tales, Yesterday's News, and hopefully I'll be reading some Lovecraft next season on that one. So, there you go. Yes, thank you once again for checking out Diabolical Index. Thank you, Black Books Society, for checking out the podcast.
Tune in next week for the Choose Your Own Adventure. So.
Yeah, definitely tune in next week. Choose Your Own Adventure. I will. A lot of times I don't go through them because I kind of want it to be new, but I might kind of go through this to see if it passes muster, and if it does, we'll be doing Night in Werewolf Woods, Goosebumps, R.L. Stine, Choose Your Own Adventure type thing. Read Beware, you choose a scare. What's that?
I thought I showed you that before.
Nope, I don't think so. Maybe you did. And have a wonderful evening. And in case I forgot to mention it, keep it squirrely.